Smorgasbord Radio.
Hi, I'm Chris Christie, and I'm dropping out of the race because I'm a fat piece of shit and nobody cares about me. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice day.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Is this thing working? I don't know how to work this stuff anymore. It's been so long. Hi, everybody. This is Chris, and this is the Years, I can't even talk. Smorg Show podcast, the Smorgasbord Radio Show. After a several-month-long hiatus, we are finally back in the studio. Here I am with my friend Jerry.
Hiya, what?
Hey, Jer.
Oh, hi. Hey, how you doing?
Welcome back. This is our first show of oh my gosh, let me start over. What year is it? 19.
Oh, you're back in the 20th century, huh?
These guys are old.
I remember the 20th century.
I've been trying to hide it for so long, but every now and then it just slips out.
Well, I guess you shouldn't feel too bad because at least you're not doing as badly as our brave commander-in-chief. That's right. I can't even.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Hey, so this is our first episode of 2024, and I'm a little rusty. So bear with me, and it's going to be like a champagne bottle with a cork coming off. Yeah, we're eating now because we haven't had lunch yet. So please forgive us from our pretzel. Anyway.
And your cheese puffs.
Cheese puffs, yeah.
Cheese puffs.
So this is the Smorgasbord Radio Show that you've heard so much about over the years. And we are here for the first time in a while. I think you maybe have been here last in October was our last show together. And then we've just been sort of on break, which is fine. We can do that. This is episode 173. And
remember when the 100th episode was such a big deal?
Oh, I know.
I think that the 100th episode, that was pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah, I think that was 2019.
Oh, yeah.
That's when everything changed.
Yes,
so what has happened here since we last got together? Oh, I got to play around with the VR goggles.
You promised me you wouldn't do that.
You know, my son-in-law brought them over for Christmas. And I'm like, all right, while they're here, let me try them. And I used the MetaQuest 3.
Okay.
And, oh my gosh, these things were pretty fantastic. But I would never own them.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I like the best about them. Because, yeah, they got the video games, and these space aliens were coming down through the ceiling, and I was able to bust up my living room, and you could actually see, like, the wall getting blown to pieces, and then I see the outside of the house, like a moonscape, and it was just pretty wild. But once I got that novelty out of the way, I used the map system, and I got to travel anywhere in the world just by putting in an address. Mm-hmm. And you literally feel like you are standing wherever you say you want to go. And I decided to go back to some of my old neighborhoods, my old childhood homes.
Some people were like, "Well, I'd like to be in Bora Bora right now."
Well, I went to different countries, but I was able to go back and stand in front of my. No, I didn't go there.
Okay.
I went back to like where I grew up as a kid, early days, and it was so wild. I went to my dad's house, and I felt like I was standing in his driveway.
Okay.
And I felt like I could just walk up and ring the doorbell, and he'd be there. I would turn around, and I would see the neighborhood around me. I'd look up, I'd see the sky, I'd hear the birds. It's pretty wild. And I went back to some places I went on vacation. When we went to Alaska last year, I went to some of the hiking trails that I had walked. And it only takes you as far as maybe the satellite will have captured it. Right. So it didn't take me into the deep of the woods, but I at least got to go through the downtown area of Ketchikan or Juneau or whatever and say, I was just here. So that was pretty cool. I don't know why I brought that up. I'm a tech nerd.
Well, we know that, but did you get sort of that Star Trek holodeck feeling there?
A little bit.
Yeah, because it sounds something like what that would be. Basically, except obviously the holodeck is like totally immersive. It surrounds you and you feel you're actually in it. It's a big hologram where you were just actually just connected through your eyes through the
It is pretty
VR.
Yeah. And now that set of goggles was like, I think it retailed for around $500, but this, the Apple Vision Pro, you've probably been seeing videos about, they're like $3,500, these goggles. And it's just weird to see, because you get like this menu that shows up in midair, and you can push buttons and drag, your panels out of the way. So they have these videos of people sitting at the airport, and they're just like punching this air. It's just, that's going to be the next thing that you're going to be seeing now on the train. It's just people just kind of.
I'm not surprised about that because I remember the whole Pokemon Go thing that came out. Was it 2019 or 2018? I can't remember.
Maybe earlier than that.
Maybe. And you literally would see these morons just running around, blank stares on their face, staring at their phones, trying to capture these imaginary creatures that were on their phone. It just so to me, it's just the next step of
Well,
I call it high tech dumbing down.
Yeah.
Because the more the people engage in these high tech toys, the stupider they act.
Oh yeah. When people were first walking around with the earbuds or the AirPods or whatever they were,
right,
and having phone calls where hands free, and they're just walking down the street, and they got their little man bag on them. That was the first weird thing that it's like they're disconnected, they're talking,
Well, back in the day, when you talk to yourself, it was a sign of somebody, you have mental problems. You're talking to yourself.
That's what it looked like. People walking down the street, they looked mentally ill when that first came up. Now it's just norm. It's like,
right.
Now, pretty soon you're going to be seeing these people with goggles. Now, the weird thing about the Apple Vision Pro is that if you're looking at a person who's got the goggles on, you will see an animated eyeballs looking back at you, knowing that they're able to see you. It's not like they've cut off. They can walk down the street. But the first thing that they do is that they can do these profile. It does like a 3D profile of you. So it'll ask you to take your phone, or not even the phone. I think the goggles themselves. You hold the goggles facing you, and it'll tell you to turn your head, look up, look down, and it'll take this 3D profile of you so that when you have phone call conversations with people with wearing the goggles on the other end, you're talking to their 3D image. Avatar, yeah. And it's very close. It's in beta mode still, so they haven't perfected it. But in that process, they've scanned your eyes. And so when you're talking to somebody with the goggles, and let's say they're watching a movie, and then they see you come in the room, and then they focus their attention outwards of the goggles, not looking inward, their eyeballs show up on the goggles.
Not too scary.
It's just freaky. So,
I don't know. I think that, again, all this stuff that you interact with high tech, they scan you, I'd say it's like you're giving information to somebody. I know you are. I just get this feeling that all these biometrics and everything are just going to be, somebody's going to own them. They're going to sell them. The Chinese will have them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But something's going to happen, and it's not good. Mm-hmm. I know I'm sounding like a Luddite, a anti-tech person, but
better drink that fast. It looks like it's going to, your head is overflowing.
No, it was a perfect pour.
That is a very, very good pour. We're drinking beer, which is typical. All right, so next.
Well, how else can I get through these podcasts if I'm not sloshed?
The beginning of the show is just going to be a little disjointed. The topics don't naturally flow into each other very well. There's a few just miscellaneous things, but then the second half of the show is going to be very cohesive, and I'll have a theme, which will tie back to our episode title, which is Buckle Up, Turbulent Times Ahead. So that's where we're going. We're not there yet. This is the warm-up mode. So here's just a little light story here. So Bill Gates.
Turbulent times ahead. What the heck have we been in the last 4 years?
Well, I know we're gonna reflect. So Bill Gates just recently celebrated World Toilet Day, where he took himself to Brussels and he descended into the Belgium capital's sewer system.
And he should have stayed there.
Yeah, it would have been good for all of us.
Yeah. But it makes sense, someone who is a turd searching out other turds makes sense.
Yeah. So there's a video of him taking a tour of the bowels of Belgium. So let's see, just a few paragraphs here. His scatological subterranean mission saw him share a video of his visit to the Brussels sewer system. And he said, it stinks and there are rats, which he quickly realized before pointing to the scientific research that happens in the sewer system. This is not the first time that Gates has shared his fascination with human waste. Back in 2015, he posted a video of himself at a waste processor drinking the product of what had been 5 minutes earlier human feces. And he said, "It's water," as he exclaimed after taking a sip. The video was made after Gates visited a facility in Washington state that burns human waste to produce water, electricity, and ash.
That sounds actually not. Sorry. It sounds like not actually a bad idea.
I know. I can't get beyond that concept, though.
Well, I mean, we're living in a world that's does not have doesn't have endless resources. So any way we can find ways of maximizing what we already have, I think is a good thing.
Yeah. The Omni Professor, a Gates Foundation project. Oh, that's the name of the project. The Omni Professor, a processor. The Omni Processor, a Gates Foundation project, is designed to address the problem of poor sanitation facing many poor countries by taking human waste out of the streets and streams and turning it into something useful. They should set up camp in San Francisco for this. It would be a good prototype.
Yeah, it come in my neighborhood too.
To that end, Gates is buying up farmland and investing in meat alternatives to control the public's diet under the guise of saving the planet from climate change.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with climate change. It's everything to do with social engineering. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't eat meat. So I'd still, because I think in the end.
Yeah.
I mean, do I think that people should eat less meat and they should go for, healthy meat alternatives? And I think there's a few out there. Yeah, sure. But I don't like the idea of it being kind of forced.
Yeah.
Or really just kind of pressured on people. People should come because a lot of people have already embraced the plant-based diet for health reasons and whatnot. And they never needed Bill Gates to tell them to do that. And they never told, go and eat insects, which is a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Chitin the shell of the insects is not a healthy thing for humans to eat.
No. And I don't really have anything against, meat alternatives because you and I we're probably going to, we went to a vegan restaurant together and I think a lot of it's come a long way. The problem I've got with it is more around the composition. If you look at the ingredients and the chemicals are endless that you can't even pronounce half of them on a lot of the store-bought products. So,
well, for me, the main thing with the, a lot of the, let's say Impossible or Beyond meat is that they have such high levels of seed oils and other kind of fats like that. So things like coconut oil or canola or whatever. And that's not healthy either. So not in the ultimate sense. Yeah, you're avoiding animal fats, but you're replacing with plant fats, which in some regards is almost as bad. So that's one thing too, besides all the preservatives and things you were talking about earlier.
Well, I mean, yeah, if there's animal fat and all that is one thing, but if you've got something that's been basically made in a laboratory and you've got these chemicals as your number one ingredient, I don't know.
No, I agree with that, but I don't know if Beyond Meat is like that. I don't
know which ones are worse than others.
Yeah.
But sodium content is another one. If you looked at any of these, and I'm not even just picking on vegan stuff, but I'm just talking about packaged goods in general. when my blood pressure started to rise, I started to realize, hey, there was a correlation when Kim started to work out of the home, and I was getting all these packaged dinners that were
Had a lot of sodium in them.
like 1,000 milligrams in. It says serving size 3 servings in a packet. Like, man, I ate the whole thing. So I had 3,000 milligrams of
Yeah.
sodium in one sitting.
You need to drink like a gallon of water to kind of dilute that.
Yeah.
But I do kind of wonder though, because I go to like I sometimes will shop at other ethnic food stores.
Yeah.
So not just your regular like going to I don't know, a regular grocery store, but like ones for like Asian, especially Asian products. And I'm looking at like the ramen stuff or just some of the sauces and stuff. And I'm like looking at 1,800, 900 milligrams of sodium.
Yeah.
Off the top, 1,100. And I'm looking at all the Asian people in the store. It's like, how are these people not like all on like blood pressure medicine? Because I mean, there's just ridiculous amounts of salt and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I do see things like Kikkoman will make like a
low sodium.
low sodium,
Yeah.
and it's still like between 500 and 600 milligrams per
Right.
serving. Still better than 1,100, but still.
And it's just a little bit of soy sauce.
Right.
It's not even a full meal.
By the way, people who do like soy sauce and don't want so much milligrams, try Bragg's liquid aminos. Very good.
Oh, yeah?
Oh yeah, it's a healthy brand, but it gives you the soy sauce taste. I tried the coconut aminos soy sauce replacement. I've not come across one that tastes good, but the Bragg's liquid aminos, which I don't think are based on coconut or anything, it tastes like soy sauce, and it's good, so you get that umami flavor that everybody loves so much. But it's like 300 milligrams or something, really low. It probably almost roughly about half of what like the Kikkoman's is. So if you're looking, you just go to like a Whole Foods, they'll have it there, places like that. I think even like Jewel, we have a major chain called Jewel here. So I think some of them might have it, and you can buy it. So that's what I would recommend. And that's the things you can, the thing is, as we get older, we start becoming very good label readers. When you were in your 20s and early 30s,
You didn't care about that.
Yeah, he just like.
Well, back then
it tastes good.
The labels back then didn't exist the way they do today.
That's true. You didn't have quite the information as far as the nutritional facts, especially back in the 80s. That was probably non-existent.
Oh,
back
the
then.
80s! I could really go for the 80s right now.
I go for the 70s to tell you the truth.
Sure, anything pre-1990 would be fine with me.
Well, I don't have a problem with the early 90s. I think once you got to the
Right.
late 90s, then and once you got into 2000s,
A lost century is what we've got here.
so far.
So, hey, I got this clip from. You see that Tucker Carlson interview with Putin?
A bit of it. I didn't see the whole thing.
I think it's like 2 hours.
Yeah,
and I
it's
think
pretty
the
immersive.
first 40 minutes is like right out of Jerry's school. It's just a Russian history lesson. I mean, and he starts from
The beginning of the
beginning,
country.
yes. But then you start getting into the meat of it. But my favorite exchange from that
I'm so offended. Why'd you say meat?
the meat of it. Yes, I get it.
Triggered.
I've got a few clips here. This is my favorite part of the interview. Let me play this clip here.
Who blew up Nord Stream?
You for sure.
I was busy that day. Nate, do you have I did not blow up
То есть
Nord
у вас-
Stream. Thank you, though.
У вас лично, может быть, есть алиби, у вас лично.
You personally may have an alibi, but the CIA has no such alibi.
He's not wrong.
I think when that happened, I think almost pretty much everyone kind of knew, except the people who wanted to willfully be ignorant about it. But everybody else, we were behind it.
Well, he goes on about this.
Do you have evidence that NATO or the CIA did it?
You know, I won't get into details, but people always say in such cases, look for someone who is interested. But in this case, we should not only look for someone who is interested, but also for someone who has capabilities. Because there may be many people interested, but not all of them are capable of sinking to the bottom of the Baltic Sea and carrying out this explosion. These two components should be connected. Who is interested and who is capable of doing it?
What do you think you should answer the question right there? I mean, yeah, Poland might want to have done that to get back at Russia, but do you think they have the capability of blowing up that fuel line? No.
Good point.
And Germany wouldn't do it because they built it and they needed the resources coming from Russia. So I don't think they were going to do it either.
Here's a final clip from that segment.
But I'm confused. I mean, that's the biggest act of industrial terrorism ever, and it's the largest emission of CO2 in history. Okay, so if you had evidence, and presumably given your security services, your intel services, you would, that NATO, the US, CIA, the West did this, why wouldn't you present it and win a propaganda victory?
In the war of propaganda, it is very difficult to defeat the United States, because the United States controls all the world's media and many European media. The ultimate beneficiary of the biggest European media are American financial institutions. Don't you know that? So it is possible to get involved in this work, but it is cost prohibitive, so to speak. We can simply shine the spotlight on our sources of information, and we will not achieve results. It is clear to the whole world what happened, and even American analysts talk about it directly.
I can't disagree with the guy.
I know.
And as someone whose background, ethnic background, if you will, comes from a country that has been the victim of Russian aggression on a number of occasions, I don't want to back Putin. But if he's saying something that makes sense, I can't argue him. I can't argue with him on that.
Yeah, I despise, the media, and they say, if you agree with Putin, you're a Putin lover. It's like, if he's saying something that's accurate, it's accurate. It's not that I side with him on his...
Well, there's an old saying that correlation is not the same thing as, correlation is not the same as causation.
Causation, yeah.
So if if Kim Jong-un says something that makes sense, it still makes sense, whether it's coming from him or someone else.
Right.
So, the truth is the truth or it isn't. And that's it. It doesn't matter if the truth comes from a source you like or a source you don't like.
Right.
Basically, this comes down to a media complex that wants to frame everything in a very narrow definition, very narrow spectrum, so that they force people's. I'm sorry, I guess I just love hearing the way I talk. But no, they're forcing
modulation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
You're right there on top of the microphone.
Yes, I am.
Oh, yes, darling. You're darling.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
Sorry, I don't know if it's coming across out of the recording, but it's in my ears, and you're just
right there on top of it all. Darling.
I'm turning into Roger Waters. Okay.
Yes, hello, darling.
Hello, darling. But no, but seriously, but this is basically they're using this. They're using, or I should say that the media is engaging in social engineering. It's basically telling people what to think and how to think, and they're not allowing people. In the past, the idea with media is that they gave you the information. You made up your own.
We made our own decision, right? They think we're too stupid to make our own decision, so they have to explain it to us.
Yeah, explain.
Mansplain.
Yeah, here's the thing. They're talking about their mansplaining, but they got media splaining.
Media splaining.
You got some splaining to do, Lucy.
And there used to be a thing called investigative journalism where they would actually get out there and kind of uncover the facts for us.
Uh-huh.
Now they sit back. They never get out of their anchor chairs. They have a panel who've been on Twitter all day, and then they just basically talk about who tweeted something, and they react to it. They talk 24/7 about it instead of, where are you telling me the news? It's now become opinion. You're talking about somebody's opinion who I want to say tweet because I don't know what the verb is for X anymore because they don't have.
They're Xing.
They're Xing.
But well, fine. The thing for me is that the media and more specifically journalism has become extremely lazy. Mm-hmm. Now, I saw this kind of starting to happen when back during the Gulf War II, during W's time, they were sending news releases. They kind of pre-filmed things. And they were set up by the government, and they would give them to the news outlets, and they would just go ahead. They wouldn't edit them. They wouldn't comment on them. They would just broadcast them as if they were actual news stories. It's like if you're going to take stuff from the government and you're not even going to vet it or anything,
right?
Then you're already
that is propaganda.
Yeah, and then you abandon your I don't know what they call that. Is it the fifth estate? I forget. There's a thing. You have these branches.
Yeah, the fifth estate. The media is the fifth estate.
The fifth estate because it oversees what the powers.
Fifth estate or fourth estate? It's the fourth. It's the fourth estate. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm getting make fifth column.
Yeah, fifth column.
Yeah, fourth estate. So you have because you have like the legislative, the executive, and and the judicial,
and then you have
the
media.
And you have the journalistic media that's supposed to be there to oversee and let people know, hey, they're up to something bad here. You should check out what's going on. And then
that's a true check and balances because then you can hold all three branches accountable.
Our founding fathers talked about the importance of the press as a fourth estate and as a sort of an overseer of the government.
Right.
And kind of an independent. So because the idea of the press was that it was outside, it was in the public sector. It was, in other words, I should say the private sector overlooking the public sector in the sense of like you had these private newspapers or whatever, and they would say, oh, the government's doing this and the government's doing that. What do you as the citizen feel about this? And then, of course, you say, I don't like it. I'm going to call my senator or I'm going to call my representative or I'm going to call my mayor and say, what's going on here? And that's what the news media was supposed to do.
That's why it was so important. It was in the First Amendment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech, freedom of press.
Yeah. I think a lot of the problems we have today are a result of the media not doing their job.
Well, it just it makes for a low information society
yeah.
and audience. But then again, that's why a lot of people, if you looked in statistics, the trust in the media is at an all-time low in this country. We're actually one of the countries that has the lowest trust in the media. And I also think we're one of the countries that's probably going outside of the regular mainstream media more than any other. There's so many outlets on the internet that are, are putting this stuff out here to other news sources. And people are going to Joe Rogan before they're going to go to the nightly news. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Right. We're going to take a break now, and we are going to come back, and we are really going to be firing on all cylinders. If we haven't already, I'm feeling it. It's building. It's going to explode in the second segment of the show.
Yes.
So before we do that, we're going to chill. We're going to go back into the vault here. This is vintage Baba Gonesh. Baba Gonesh is on assignment, by the way. He is compiling a story that will be on the next episode. So he's taken this week off, even though he's had 4 months off since our last show. So we're going to go back into archive. This is from 2010. This is classic vintage Baba Gonesh thought for the day. Enjoy, and we'll be back in just under 3 minutes.
Today's thought for the day is a story about a little bird. One day, a little bird was flying south for the winter. It was so cold that the bird froze and he fell to the ground into a large field. While he was lying there, a cow came by and dropped some dung on him. As the frozen bird lay there in the pile of cow dung, he began to realize just how warm he was. The dung was actually thawing him out, and he felt very comfortable. He lay there all warm and happy, and soon he began to sing for joy. But just then, a passing cat heard the bird singing and came over to investigate. As the cat followed the sound and got closer, the cat discovered the bird under the pile of cow dung. The cat then promptly dug him out, and he ate him. There are 3 morals of today's thought for the day. Number 1, not everyone who poops on you is your enemy. Number 2, not everyone who gets you out of the poop is your friend. And number 3, when you are deep in poop, it is best to keep your mouth shut. Thank you very much.
You're listening to the Smorg Show podcast.
We need a paradigm shift. We must rebuild trust, and that's actually the theme of our meeting. We have to rebuild trust. Trust in our future, trust in our capacity to overcome challenges, and most importantly, trust in each other.
Yes. Trust us.
Yes, my.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Boy, oh boy.
Welcome back. Sorry.
Yes, mein Führer.
Trust us.
You will obey. We have ways of making you obey. God, if that guy doesn't sound like a Bond villain, no one does.
Yeah, you made that comment before, and it's absolutely true.
He sounds exactly like Goldfinger. If you go watch, if you go back to that movie and listen to the guy that is like, "Do you expect me to talk, Goldfinger?" No, I expect you to die, Mr. Bond.
Yes, I thought that would be a fitting.
I am Klaus Schwab.
Yeah, Klaus Schwab. I picked that as the starting point for this segment because I think it's clear that they're trying to do a reset. And I'm not talking about the
Great Reset.
The Great Reset, just a reset on the dialogue, the narrative, because I think they feel like, okay, we're awakened and we got to reset. We need a paradigm shift.
Yeah, well, if I'm not mistaken, at the last WEF, the theme of the last WEF.
Yes, this was from that last.
Right.
Yeah.
Said regaining trust. It's like, well, we never had trust to begin with, dude.
Yeah.
So
I think they realized that they
screwed the
They
pooch.
overplayed their hand last time around. So here
They were giddy during COVID. They thought,
yeah.
Because I remember that one of the things that when they had the lockdowns of COVID, they were saying, oh, when you have these lockdowns, the air is so clean in all these cities and everything is so, better ecologically because we're all locked down. We're not making a mess being humans and using resources and stuff.
Right.
And it's like, so they were on that thing. Now we're all looking at all the stuff that's been happening, especially with regards to not only what happened with the pandemic, but also the vaccination scheme that happened after that.
That's a good transition because really what I wanted to set this up for. So, I mean, back to the original title of the show, Turbulent Times Ahead, buckle up. It's really, here we are again in another election year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have been in this nonstop culture war for the past 4 years. Now, arguably, it started way before then, but I want to focus on the past 4 years just to illustrate the point that we have not had a moment to breathe. Since 2020, March of 2020, we have gone from crisis to crisis.
It's true.
It started with 15 days to slow the spread, to George Floyd, to the 2020 election and the aftermath of, challenging the results, to January 6th, the lockdowns, the vaccine mandates, cancel culture, banning conservative voices from social media,
right?
Moving into the weaponization of the federal government.
And the DOJ specifically.
Yeah. Ukraine. Then we went to overturning Roe v. Wade, which went into the 2022 midterms.
Yeah.
The invasion at the border, the Trump indictments. I mean, it has been one distraction after another.
All by design, if you ask me.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was a period in time, even in the Obama years, where it was one thing after another. And I think that, I don't know if that is a... help me out here. His inspiration, his political
mentor.
Mentor.
Is that Rahm Emanuel?
No, I'm talking about in the '60s. Oh my gosh.
As far as the Vietnam War and all
never
that.
Let a crisis go to waste. What was
never let the Solinsky?
Solinsky, thank you. I drew a blank there. I think that was part of that. Is that you've got to. It's got to be constant. It needs to be.
Well, if we're talking about leftist insurrection or specifically communist subversion, the revolution only happens when the society is in massive crisis. The only way you can inject major social revolutionary change is by destabilizing society in such profound ways that people will be clamoring for a change. But unfortunately, and you'll give it to them, but the change that you're giving them is not really what they asked for.
Right.
But it's what you want.
Yes. But the interesting thing is that the left is apparently getting worn out as well. So, I mean, we're exhausted from all this, but the left is as well. And here's just a couple of...
well, they're in the deeper end of it all the time as well, because they're the ones that have to basically, if you're asking me, have to hold up these untenable ideas, like anybody can just change their gender anytime they want, or biological men can say they're women and participate, compete against women in sports, things of that nature. You have to keep saying, "Oh, that's so fine. That's no problem. That's okay." Mm-hmm. And the thing is, everybody else saying, "No, it's not."
Well, this article came from New York Times, actually, and I found this interesting, this headline, Anti-Trump Burnout. The resistance says it's exhausted.
The resistance. Didn't you have a friend who said something about he was part of the resistance?
Yeah, I had a friend who told me, you realize that I'm part of the resistance. Okay, well, good luck to you. What are you resisting exactly?
Lower prices for gas?
I don't know. But here, I'm going to read a little bit of the first few paragraphs of this New York Times article. Bracing for yet another election against Donald Trump, America's liberals are feeling the fatigue. We are kind of like crisis out. Crisis out.
Is that a word?
I guess they made it into crisis-ed out. One Democrat said. In 2017, they donned pink hats to march on Washington, registering their fury with Donald J. Trump by the hundreds of thousands. They then flipped the House from Republican control, won the presidency, and secured a surprisingly strong showing in the 2022 midterm elections, galvanized by their conviction that Mr. Trump and his allies constituted a national emergency. This year, anti-Trump voters are grappling with another powerful sentiment: exhaustion. Some folks are burned out on outrage. It's like, how can you constantly keep it at the temperature that high? We're going on 8 years of this. Maybe even 9 years, basically, since Trump announced his candidacy. It's been 9 years of this.
Right.
Some folks are burned out on the outrage, says Rebecca Lee Funk, the Washington-based founder of The Outrage, a progressive activism group and a purveyor of resistance-era apparel. People are tired. I think the last I think last election we were desperate to get Trump out of office, and folks were willing to rally around that singular call of action. And this election feels different.
Is it because they realized in order to get Trump out, they voted for Weekend at Bernie's?
Yeah.
A walking corpse.
Yeah, it says Mr. Biden has a lot of work to do. Interviews with nearly 24 Democrat voters, activists, and officials make it clear his challenge in energizing Americans who are enthusiastic about a likely 2022 match are worried about his age and in some cases are struggling to sustain the searing anger towards Mr. Trump that Democrats have relied on for nearly a decade.
Otherwise known as TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome.
Yeah. So the essential key to the left prevailing in November is to keep the crisis going. Crises.
Yeah.
Because in the end, I really think it's still going to come down to 5,000 votes from this state, 2,000 votes from that state, and it's going to come down to who wants it more. Because I don't think it's going to be a landslide as it should be. I think it's still going to end up being fairly close.
You think so?
I still think so. I mean,
I know the demographics are shifting in fairly major ways. Trump, if we're talking about that for a second, has gained major ground with his Hispanic voters, and he is doing very well with black males. Unfortunately, black females, not so much.
I just don't get it. Yeah.
But the one thing that works against him, if we're talking again demographically speaking, is that white females, especially kind of the white suburban females, are still pretty darn woke.
Yeah.
And I know this from my own personal experience because I work at a library in the suburbs of Chicago here. And the mentality of a lot of the ladies that work there is pretty anti-Trump because they just see him as this big, batty, sort of sexist pig type of person, which I don't think reflects how he governed at all in the last 4 years that he was in. Everybody benefited when he was in office, generally speaking.
Yeah. I think if you were to actually compare, I mean, now you've got a back-to-back. We don't have an uncertainty in a candidate. This is like the first time that we can say we know how he's going to govern because we've seen it before.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to go way back, Grover Cleveland.
Yeah, but I'm saying people who are alive today.
Yeah. I was out now. Yeah, that's definitely something we haven't dealt with in well over a century.
Yeah.
And I agree. And when it comes down to it, I'm of the opinion, as are some other people that are in the Republican/Trump camp, whatever you want to call it, people, especially like Vivek Ramaswamy, they're basically we're not going to be working with a campaign of going against Joe Biden because I think there's a very strong possibility that he'll be shoved out of the way. And the reason I say this is because now the mainstream media is turning ugly on him. They're showing up a lot of his foibles. They're bringing up the Hunter Biden stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's coming on that like if we 2 years ago or more, they would have never even touched it. So I think that there's a kind of collusion with the powers that be within the government and the media saying, we got to get this guy out. And one way we're going to do that is to besmirch his name. So I think that's why I think that, and I think Vivek was right about this, that we're not going to be dealing with going against Biden because it really shouldn't even be about going against Biden because Biden is really just the front person. It's the people or the mentality that's behind him and who was also actually running this. I think even you said it, basically this is Obama's third term. Mm-hmm. So I think that either people like Obama or of his ilk are really what's behind that. So the thing is, we're really the other side that wants to prevail. They've got to not only point out how things were going under Trump's administration, but also set our vision, our goal. One of the things about the Republicans, they're not very good at getting the message out.
Yeah, they're
and getting the
terrible at
vision.
that. Right.
And that's why I think also Trump threw the Republican establishment for a loop, because it's almost as if the Republicans were okay with them being the loyal opposition and not really getting a vision, broadcasting it out to the people, and getting them excited about it.
Yeah.
I think that's changing with this second Trump say race to the White House or whatever. But I mean, the election cycle, whatever. It's different now, and I think if people that are with Trump on that they've got to get the message out there and let people know, say, you were doing better under Trump. You know that Trump's not going to be some sort of dictator or anything like that. You know that he cares about the country and he wants the country to.
Even though the media is trying to position him as he's going to be a threat to democracy.
Right.
They're trying to take that narrative.
By the way, I want to stop here and break this down. There is no such thing as democracy in this country.
Right.
What we are is a constitutional republic that democratically elects its politicians, its leaders. That has nothing. A real democracy would be like, all right, 51% of the population
51% votes to take your property away.
Right, and that pure democracy would be a nightmare to live under. Anyway, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. So anyway, back to my hook about who wants it more. I guess the question then becomes, I mean, if history, recent history anyway, is any guide, we're going to be in for some turbulent times this year, because it seems like every 4 years there's this cycle. What are the globalists going to cook up next? Is it going to be another pandemic? Is it going to be a race war, power grid shortages, outages, or obviously we're going to this World War III mentality with, I mean, how many wars are breaking out now?
Right. Well, I think the pandemic thing is not going to work this time, because exponentially people are just waking up to what happened during that, and also the fallout from a lot of the vaccine injuries that have been going on, which of course the media has been working mightily to suppress, but it's still coming out. So I don't think that's going to be. They're going to use the people that want to social engineer and force the election in a certain direction are going to use other means. And I think there's more than one way to do destabilization. You know, you don't just always have to go with a pandemic and say everybody's got to do mail-in voting. You could do a lot of other things: grid failure, cyber attacks, different types of wars. I mean, it's tough to know exactly what are up the globalists' sleeves when it comes to tricks that they might use to try to throw this election. Because let's be honest, COVID coming in the way it did, I think had a lot to do with Trump and getting Trump out of office.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I used to think, well, that's just such an American-centric point of view, but you can see how it really worked out, that it really was more so. Because I want to bring this point, because people forget about this, that Fauci, Dr. Fauci basically said that during the time of Trump, he was going to be dealing with a major health crisis.
Well, hold that thought, because here is the latest from the WHO, whatever they call it, the World Government Summit, from what's his name, General Tedros?
Theodore Tedros? Or whatever.
Here's what he has to say about the next pandemic.
Okay.
Do you have evidence that NATO or the
wrong one. Sorry.
Let me be clear. WHO did not impose anything on anyone during the COVID-19 pandemic. Not lockdowns, not mask mandates, not vaccine mandates. We don't have the power to do that. We don't want it. And we're not trying to get it. Our job is to support governments with evidence-based guidance, advice, and when needed, supplies to help them protect their people. But the decisions are theirs, and so is the pandemic agreement. It has been written by countries, for countries, and will be implemented in countries in accordance with their own national laws. In fact, WHO will not even be a party to the agreement. The parties are governments and governments alone. Far from ceding sovereignty, the agreement actually affirms national sovereignty and national responsibility in its foundational principles. Indeed, the agreement is itself an exercise of sovereignty. It's about the commitments countries are making to keep themselves and each other safer from pandemics. And it recognizes that they can only do that by working with each other.
He must protect the sovereignty.
Sovereignty.
Sounds like one of Baba's friends. Well, I mean, to me, that sounds like backpedaling, though. It's like, oh, we weren't trying to push our stuff on you. We were trying to, have the WHO try to dictate to the rest of the world. But let's be honest.
I'm wondering what this next clip was. I had a second clip that's talks about the next pandemic. Let me just hear what this is, and then we can close the pandemic discussion because I want to go to the next topic. But here,
right?
History teaches us that the next pandemic is a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, there you go.
It may be caused by an influenza virus or a new coronavirus, or it may be caused by a new pathogen we don't even know about yet, or what we call disease X.
Disease X.
COVID-19 was a disease X, a new pathogen causing a new disease. But there will be another disease X.
Of course.
Or a disease Y, or a disease Z. And as things stand, the world remains unprepared for the next disease X and the next pandemic.
Oh, we're prepared. I know.
I'm wondering when Elon's going to actually sue him for using the X label there and then
the X label.
I don't find that funny.
Disease X.
I don't find that funny. Well, I mean,
they did warn us. If you go back to what it was, 2017, when Fauci was talking about, or no, it was before Trump, because he says the next administration will have to deal with
a major health crisis of that kind of nature. I don't remember exactly how Fauci said it, but it's basically around that lines. Are we? You're so classy, you know that?
What's going on with this beer overflowing?
Well, I only have one beer, and you're down your third. Hope you ain't driving. That's all I got to say.
Oh, we're going out after this.
Oh, great. Well, I guess we don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about disease X because we're going to wrap it around. Disease X. That's with the argument.
So, I have an interesting little transition here. I'm transitioning now. Watch me. I think it's going to come down. We talk about all these other possibilities this year. I think AI is going to be an influence on this next election. Now, we've discussed AI. We've been touching around on it the past 6 months or so. Last year, I think it was last year, we talked about Leah 27. Remember we called Leah?
Not to be confused with Leah Thomas.
You're right. No, Leah 27. Can I say she's hot?
Yes, you can say
she
is.
AI chatbot.
Yes, you can say she is hot.
Ah, Jerry. What did she say?
What did she say? I don't remember.
I asked her, do you have anybody from my friend Jerry? I cannot help him with that.
Well,
what good are you then?
Well, here's the. She wouldn't be the first one that she
couldn't help you.
Yeah, it couldn't help me. So there you go.
I mean, it's one thing to joke about AI in terms of like customer service and like being able to talk to somebody, but it's actually getting kind of scary. It's getting more difficult to determine what's real and what's fake. When I opened up the show with the Chris Christie thing, that's his voice, but he didn't actually say that.
He should have said it, but yeah.
He should have acknowledged that was the reason why he was dropping out of the race. I think we need to take this one seriously.
Well, especially with deep fake videos that would get viral on the internet.
Exactly, the deep fake videos. It's getting difficult to determine because I sent you a couple of things with Greta Thunberg. And
I fell for at least one of them.
I know. I mean, I could actually hear her saying that.
Well, that's it. The thing is, that anybody who's really smart with it would not put anything there would sound reasonable based on their personality.
So, did you hear this past week? There's been a lot of controversy around the Google Gemini. I'm sure you have seen something about this week.
I gotta say I've been kind of out of the loop with
You're
that.
gonna love this.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Now, at risk of basically coming in on this last, because all the commentators have already said what they could about this, so I'm going to be kind of late to the game here, but let's just do it. So, first of all, you're going to be hearing the term, the company name of NVIDIA. You're going to learn that name very soon because it is the AI chip maker. So it is think of the Intel chips. Intel in the day, in the 90s, when they were basically the chip.
Yeah, everybody was,
in the early days of PCs. This is specifically around AI, and companies are buying this up. In fact, this past Wednesday, that company got a huge boost on Wall Street. That company now has a value greater than the entire China stock market and the Canadian economy. It is now worth $2 trillion. So I'm going to lead into that by saying Google has just launched a new product called Gemini, which puts ChatGPT to shame. If you think about Google and how much information they have acquired on us, they have a good basis for AI. They know everything that has gone into a Google search. Anybody who's used a Google product, they've collected that information on us. Everything you Google out there is now used to be part of the AI. The problem is AI is essentially a mirror to Silicon Valley's worldview. It's embedded with wokeness, which became evident this past week because with Google Gemini, it was impossible. So they're called prompts. So you can do in the little text box, tell me about Abraham Lincoln, and it'll give you an essay. And I think like within 5 seconds, you say, give me a 500-word essay. Give me a 1,000-word essay. And you've got basically a research paper at your fingertips. But the problem, and you can do that with pictures. You can say, give me a picture of George Washington. Give me a picture of a historical figure, and it will generate. Give me a picture of a blonde in a field. It'll give you a picture of a blonde in a field. The problem is, once they launched Gemini this past week, it was impossible to get a picture of a white person.
Actually, I did hear a little bit about this.
So basically, you could type in, give me a picture of the Pope, and you will get a black Pope or an Indian woman Pope. You ask me, give me a World War II German soldier. It'll come back in Asian. Vikings were Asian. Did you know that, Jerry? But even if, give me the pictures of the founders of Google, and they came back Asian.
Well, isn't that kind of true?
No, I don't think so. The funny thing about it is the Babylon Bee, which of course, is satire, had a take on this. They said, finally, somebody was able to get a picture of a white man. They said, give me a picture of Clarence Thomas. And they showed a picture of a white Clarence Thomas. It was classic.
Well, we all know he's secretly white, and he's an Oreo. He's black on the outside, white on the inside.
Yeah. So what was it? Where was it going with this? But so there was a big controversy around this. That obviously there was a EDI. That's a erectile dysfunction. Equity, inclusion.
DEI. DEI.
I had EDI.
Well, actually, what's the difference?
They've obviously built this into their programming. It actually came out later, the day after this controversy. So basically, they took this down because there were people that were trying to get a white person. Just give me any white person. And like NHL hockey player, it came back female. They were giving female. So they knew something was up with this program.
You think?
So somebody had pushed the limits with this and said, okay, they just typed in, give me a picture of a white person. And the response that the program gave back was it could not fulfill the request because it reinforces harmful stereotypes and generalizations about people based on their race. So Google has paused this feature, but they haven't really admitted to fault or they haven't apologized for this.
Of course they are not.
Because they're basically doing what the program's designed to do, but albeit a little too aggressively. The response that they put out, and I quote, because they wanted to acknowledge the controversy that was erupting. And they said, historically, media representation has overwhelmingly favored white individuals and their achievements. This has contributed to a skewed perception where their accomplishments are seen as the norm, whereas those of other groups are often marginalized or overlooked. Focusing solely on white individuals in this context risks perpetuating that imbalance.
White man bad.
Now, if you go to the Google the AI principles page, because I guess you can like look at their AI strategy and sort of like the purpose, it cites two objectives of AI. One, be socially beneficial, and two, avoid creating or reinforcing an unfair bias.
I don't think that's their job.
No, it isn't.
Their job is to provide information and not put a spin on it. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just like what they're saying is what we're putting this out and we're doing it for social engineering purposes and we're totally right to do so. Which could not be more wrong. But again, we know these Silicon Valley people and their mentality. I mean, it's always been radically leftist.
Oh yeah.
Early on even. And the thing is, they got this economic power when computing and the internet gained, and became as big as it did, and they used that as their platform to push these. It's like they all, like you said, they all read the Saul Alinsky or the Noam Chomsky, and it's like we're going to force this on everyone else. We're going to force this mentality that we learned from our communist sociology professors, and we are going to then, through the power we have in the technology, and people, of course, want access to this technology, and they want to get the benefits of the technology, but the technology comes with strings attached.
Yeah.
And they're very dangerous, and I would say evil strings attached to this.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, so this has all happened in the last, 72 hours. It just, because I think this product was launched about a week ago. And so this is their first step out into this field. And I think they're going to, I don't know what else to say. It's, I don't know if they've relaunched it in terms of like, have they fixed this? I mean, they haven't really. It wasn't a bug. It was intentional.
So yeah, they can't. What are going to fix what they meant to do?
Yeah.
Oh, the only well, you know what?
So
go ahead.
let me just talk about AI in general. So
Yeah.
it's going to, I think there are certain points in history where you can point to certain things that said, this is transformational and society has never been the same since. You could point to the iPhone. You could talk to social media. You could talk in recent. I think this is going to be another one of those points where nothing will be the same going forward. And it's not something that you can avoid either. It's out there. Every company is looking to implement this for whatever service they have. Even if you go like, I'm just going to throw this out there as a practical use case for this. If you go out to Amazon and you want to, it says you buy a product and you've got all these, like let's say 1,000 reviews, AI will actually sort of like collaborate. What's the word I'm looking for?
Collate.
Thank you. All the information and basically say at the very top, customers are saying this about this product, and it'll take all the common comments about it and bring it up to the top. So you only have to read like 2 paragraphs that basically collates all of the feedback that people have given. So that's a practical use case of it. In my business, where we do consumer intelligence and market research, where we give data to our clients, they have to make sense out of the data we give them. And some people don't have time to delve into the numbers and to make sense of it. You can put this data through this program, AI program, and give you a narrative that says, okay, sales are up in this area, and you can basically, you can improve your sales if you start to target this group. It looks at the data for you and analyzes it. But of course, like any of these kind of like advancements, it's a double-edged sword where it has a lot of evil downside to it.
Right.
And there's a lot of evil that comes out of this.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's skewed. In other words, they can collate the information, they can put it in this package for you, but if the AI is skewed to promote a particular message in it, because like I said, you're typing something up and the thing pops up to show me a Viking, and you get an Asian guy in a Viking dress.
Yeah.
It's like, obviously you're taking information that I'm sending you, but you're skewing it and you're putting it together in a way that doesn't really reflect reality. It just reflects your agenda. Right. So that you're basically pushing agenda using technology that people will find necessary to use. It's like how I felt about the whole thing with having smartphones. Like for years, there were smartphones out there, and I said, I don't want anything to do with them. They're not useful to me. But at some point, your choices were dwindling. Back in the day, you could get certain types of phones, and they had different features and everything, but they weren't a smartphone. Now it's either you get the dumbest phone ever, which is basically some sort of basic flip phone, or you get the smartphone. And that's all. And there's so many things now that are becoming necessary that makes it almost impossible for you not to have the smartphone. So it's basically has a sort of became a what's the word I'm looking for here? An agent of convenience is now a tyranny of convenience. In other words, you don't have the option to opt out. Back in the day, you could have technology, and if you said, "Oh, that's too much, I'll back out. I won't have that technology."
Yeah.
Now, if you want to function in the wider world, you need that technology. You don't have a choice.
Right.
Or as Bill Gates would say, you're not going to have a choice.
You're not going to have a choice.
And that's kind of what we're coming to. And because the tech people are in a very powerful position, because so much of the world now is being defined by tech, especially internet tech, and everybody is on the internet, that it's going to be almost impossible to step away from it.
Right.
So, I'd almost, just one more thing I was going to say, it was almost, and not to get more biblical here, but it's almost like a virtual mark of the beast in the sense that if you want to function society, you have to go through there. So you may not get on your wrist or whatever, or your forehead, but your ability to live a normal life as you choose is being taken away from you.
Yeah.
and you will have to go through their gauntlet, so to speak.
Yeah. So on a lighter side of AI, I decided to use this Gemini product just to put in a couple of questions and see what it gave me back. And I was actually very impressed. It is actually really spot on. So I just did some simple questions here.
Okay.
What is the Smorg Show podcast?
And what did it say?
It says, the Smorg Show podcast is a variety show with a long and interesting history. Here's a breakdown. Origins. Started in 1982 to 1984 as the Chris and Dave Smorgasbord radio show on a suburban Chicago high school radio station.
So far, that's good.
Known for its edgy and unconventional content deviating from the typical rock format. Gosh. Relaunch in 2010. Chris Baquet, the original co-host, resurrected the show as a podcast with his daughter, Allie. Mm-hmm. Maintains the spirit of variety and pushes boundaries similar to the original show.
Mm-hmm.
Format. Described as a show about anything, covering diverse topics like current events, pop culture, conspiracy theories, that's where you come in, and listener calls. Features a rotating cast of co-hosts, including original members like Dave Jackson and newcomers like Ali Baquet and Jerry Malewskis. Current status. In its 5th decade, oh my gosh, we're old. It is still going strong with regular episodes. Available on various podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts and smorgshow.com website. And then an overall summary. If you're looking for a fun, unpredictable, and sometimes outrageous podcast with a unique history, the Smorg Show podcast might be for you. Just be prepared for anything. Gosh.
You could not have written it better yourself.
I could not have written it.
No.
And so I decided to do something a little different. I said, what is the Chris and Dave Smorgasbord? And it says, the Chris and Dave's, so for those of you just tuning in and you have no idea what the hell this is all about, Chris and Dave's Smorgasbord was the name of our high school radio station, which was the original version of this podcast.
Right.
It says the Chris and Dave Smorgasbord can refer to two things. One, the original radio show, which aired between 1982 and 1984.
Right.
On a suburban Chicago high school radio station, WWIII-FM.
Mm-hmm.
Hosted by Chris Baquet and Dave Jackson. Known for their contrasting personality. Really? Are we contrasting? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Zeppelin.
No.
Frank Zappa.
Yeah, Zappa.
I want to play some Zappa.
We'll play Joe's.
We're going to play some...
Joe's Garage again. Well, you should talk, because every show you did, it was like, all right, there's a Pink Floyd song, there's a Roger Waters song, there's an ELO song, there is a Nick Mason song. We don't even know where. David Gilmour's solo album.
Yeah, Fred Moore, our general manager. Oh, you can only play the same artist once in 2 hours. Oh, Roger Waters, David Gilmour, Nick Mason.
Yeah, exactly. And then Pink Floyd.
Yeah, Pink Floyd, of course.
So don't whatever.
Known for the contrasting personalities and offbeat humor. Featured a variety of content, including music, comedy skits, listener phone calls, and bizarre segments like, I don't know where they got this one, Weird World News. That's okay, they were wrong about that. We didn't have something called Weird World News.
We had Get a Life, though.
We had Get a Life. I guess that didn't make it in the bowels of AI. So, I love this. Gained a cult following. Yes, we had a cult following for its unconventional and sometimes controversial approach to radio. And then that was like the first, it could be
iteration, yeah.
Yeah, the second iteration is the Smorg Show podcast, 2010 to present. Mm-hmm. A revival of the original radio show in podcast format, hosted by Chris Baquet with rotating co-hosts, including original member Dave Jackson and others like Ali Baquet, Chris's daughter, and Jerry Malewskis. You're in here. You're part of the Smorg history.
Uh-huh.
Maintains the spirit of the original show with diverse topics, irreverent humor, and listener interaction. Not so much at the latter. Regularly releases new episodes and has garnered a dedicated fan base. Really? Have we? I don't know where they got that from. Additionally, and this is final, there is a Smorgasbord radio network with other shows besides the Smorgasbord podcast. Yes, Bob is part of the Smorgasbord Radio Network. And we had the Smorg Show Theater, which is our radio plays and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it was part of the network. Oh, a documentary film, the Chris and Dave Smorgasbord, the movie, was released in 2018. That was for our 50th anniversary at DGC. We put the little video together.
Yeah.
Chronicling the reunion and the show's history. So depending on the context, Chris and Dave Smorgasbord can refer to either the original radio show or the Smorg Show podcast, both of which are known for their unique take on entertainment. Pretty cool. So I think they did a good job with that. Now, I had fun with this.
They show pictures of you and Dave, and you're both black.
Show me a picture of Chris and Dave embracing each other in a tight hug in the radio station. Probably have something out there. Who knows? Okay, so then I had decided to take this up a notch. I did, who is Baba Gonesh? Is this... There are two people. There are two people named Baba Gonesh. The first is a Hindu monk and teacher who lived in India from the late 1800s to the late 1900s. He was born in 1890 in the Punjab region of India. Punjab. And he took sannyas vows. Sannyasa?
Yeah. It's kind of like if you're a monk and you take the vows of celibacy and all that sort of thing.
Vows of renunciation?
Yeah. You're kind of leaving the world and you're putting your mind all on spiritual matters.
He then spent many years traveling and studying with different teachers, eventually becoming a master of Kriya Yoga.
Kriya Yoga, yeah.
Yeah. In the 1960s, this is fascinating. In the 1960s, Baba Gonesh began to attract a following of Western students who were drawn to his wisdom and ability to teach them about Kriya Yoga. He continued to teach and travel until his death in 1987.
He lived 107 years. Wow.
Yeah.
You said 1880s when he opened.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So right there, I was going to say, whoa, this could be our Baba. But then he died in 1987, which, of course, that's not our Baba. The second, this is great. The second Baba Gonesh is a restaurant. is a restaurant owner and a podcaster who lives in the United States. He was born in India. But he immigrated to the United States in the 1970s. He opened his first restaurant in 1980. I think that's not true. I think he opened it while we were on the air here. And he's since opened several more. I think he only had one.
Yeah.
He is also the host of a popular podcast. It's called the Baba Gonesh Podcast, which features interviews with people from all walks of life.
Wow.
And then it says, I'm not sure which Baba Gonesh you're referring to, but I hope this information helps. So then I decided to dig deeper. I said, tell me more about the Baba Gonesh who is a restaurant owner.
The ones that are famous for his filet casserole.
Oh, yes. Based on the information I have, here's what I can tell you about Baba Gonesh, the restaurant owner. Background. Born in India, immigrated to the U.S. in the 1970s, was a successful businessman before transitioning to a spiritual life. No, I think it was the other way around. Took sannyas vows in the tradition of the Naga Babas. The Anadakara branch, focusing on Kriya Yoga, and joined the Chris and Dave Smorgasbord radio show in 1981 as master of the wide open spaces between the ears. Offering Thought for the Day and Comedy Camel segments. Oh my gosh.
This is very good.
Oh, I'm so famous. Then his
I hope Baba's not reading this because he's going to get a big head.
Oh, I know. This is going to be feeding his audience.
Massive ego.
Restaurant career. Opened his first restaurant, The Hidden Palace, A Taste of Baba, in downtown Chicago. What a fascinating name. The Hidden Palace, A Taste of Baba. Would you eat there?
No.
The restaurant's focus is likely on Indian cuisine. You think? considering his heritage and taste of Baba branding. Unfortunately, I don't have information about the specific type of Indian cuisine served or any reviews, ratings for the restaurant. Oh, we've got a whole episode on the reviews.
Oh, yeah.
Other ventures. Didn't know he had one. Hosts the podcast Not Just for Baba Anymore. That was his original title. That was Dave's. Dave Jackson came up with that title for him, Not Just for Baba Anymore.
Not just for Baba? What said it? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Not Just for Baba Anymore. And his other venture is continues contributing to the Smorg Show podcast. That he does. Further exploration. While details about his restaurant are limited, you could try searching online for the restaurant's name and location, reviews, Baba Ganesh's personal website, social media. Listen to his podcast for insight to his personality and potentially his restaurant philosophy. I hope this information has been useful. Yes, it actually has been. So this is Google Gemini. I think it's pretty scary that it came up with this.
Yeah, considering that basically almost the majority of that was not true at all when it comes to Baba and his restaurateuring. I mean, or does it, or is it?
Oh, it was.
Oh.
All of it was great.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. Maybe I think it was being a bit too I'm trying to think of that term when hyperbole. I'm sorry, that's not the term I think it was being a little bit of hyperbole when I dealt with Baba. That's what I'm saying.
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, they got a few details wrong, sequences of, he was a restaurateur. He was a podcaster first and then but I mean, besides that, it did a pretty good job returning information about this obscure podcaster that's on our show.
Yeah.
So
in the restaurant.
So anyway.
But I don't know. He's running his restaurant. He's up there in the Punjab right now, so I don't know how.
Well, his son, Gonesh.
Gonesh.
Yes, Gonesh. We got to have him on the show sometime. He's passing on the torch.
And then to make it extra special, we'll interview the Hindu guy Gonesh while we're at it too.
Oh, sure. All right, well, we're going almost an hour and a half here. Almost. Let me just finish up here real quick. Speaking of AI, this was not AI, but it should have been.
Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh, let me start over again. This is a Super Bowl ad by our fearless leader, Joe Biden. And this should have been AI because I don't know the nerve that they had to have him trot out and actually deliver this message for Super Bowl Sunday.
The Super Bowl Sunday. If you're anything like me, you like to be surrounded by a snack or two while watching the big game. You know, when buying snacks for the game, you might have noticed one thing. Sports drinks bottles are smaller. A bag of chips has fewer chips, but they're still charging it just as much. And as an ice cream lover, what makes me the most angry is that ice cream cartons have actually shrunk in size, but not in price. I've had enough of what they call shrinkflation. It's a ripoff. Some companies are trying to pull a fast one by shrinking the products little by little and hoping you won't notice. Give me a break. The American public is tired of being played for suckers. I'm calling on companies to put a stop to this. Let's make sure businesses do the right thing now.
I personally take pride in the fact that I'm nothing like you, Joe Biden. I will never be anything like you. And when he says snacks, I sometimes wonder if he's talking about food. I won't go any deeper into that, but.
Well, I'm just saying shrinkflation. Does he have any, he's not making the connection that the reason why there's
Bidenomics, they call it. Yeah.
Shrinkflation. We've been noticing that products are getting smaller and at best the prices are staying the same. But the products are getting smaller and the prices are going up.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, I just sometimes see all this and I'm just wondering if somebody's off in the back somewhere, making all this stuff happen and it's just they're laughing their butts off by like the gaslighting they're doing to us. Because this is gaslighting.
Right.
The man who's responsible, well, technically, I mean, whatever, quote unquote, responsible for the shrinking of the goods, the higher prices, and all the other kind of economic disasters that we're dealing with, is now coming online and telling us, look at all this terrible stuff that's happening. Can you believe it? And it's like, of course we can believe it, you moron. It's your fault.
Right.
And yet,
do you have any idea that this is happening?
Well, obviously, and the thing is, that's the thing is that at least people confound it. It's like, wait a minute, hold on a second. It's Bidenomics destroying the economy, and now you're coming up and telling me, look at those terrible things that are happening because of the economy. It's like, what? And so you're just like, am I in reality now? I mean, I think people are literally going to, their psyches are going to start to split because they're seeing one thing in media, and then and what's happening in their real lives, and they can't.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if
they can't synthesize it.
I don't know if that's part of the Solinsky tactic as well, but it seems like there was something where you create this catastrophe, this disaster, and then you get out there and you basically blame it on the opposition and say, vote for me because I'm going to fix it. Well, you created it.
Right. It sounds very much like the dialectic, problem, reaction, solution,
right?
So-called solution.
And my last thing here was just a note that George Soros is set to control the second largest chain of radio stations in the U.S., Odyssey.
Okay.
Odyssey. He's bought up $400 million in debt of Odyssey, which is the number 2 U.S. radio broadcaster behind iHeartMedia, with stations including WWIII in New York. So again, if Soros is proven successful here, he'll have 40% stake in the company, and that can't be good.
No.
So we're heading up to the election, and the combination of all this is not good. But I do have. Sorry, you have something to say?
Well, the only thing I was going to say in regards to the media stuff is that the upside of it is that people are more and more getting away from the traditional terrestrial media. They're actually, again, getting their stuff off the internet. And you could say, well, some of the stuff ain't that great on the internet. But what I'm saying is it offers an opportunity. In the past, all we had funneling through us was what was on the TV and what was on the radio. And we had no other viewpoint. Now, so much of it is abandoning the traditional terrestrial system and is moving in the direction of getting the information more directly from a lot of citizen journalists and a lot of these alternative websites that are giving people access to different. So even if they do get some of the nonsense on the mainstream and say, well, let me go to this website and see what they have to say about it.
Well, that is exactly how I wanted to tie up this episode, because where I am optimistic is that 4 years ago, we didn't have as much as what we have right now. Think about 4 years ago. We didn't have the Daily Wire.
No.
We didn't have Rumble.
Nope.
X was Twitter, and it was not owned by Elon Musk, who's now basically lifted the free speech.
Yeah, he's really, gave it the muscle that it needs.
Yeah. You've got Getter, you've got Truth Social. These entities basically were born out of that suppression, the cancel culture era of 2021, basically. I think we've got a lot more channels now that we can kind of tap into now than we did 4 years ago.
Yeah, we're not as unarmed as we were in the past. And I think that gives the hope for those people who do not want everything dictated to them from a controlled corporate framework, that basically we can go and find independent sources and get information and get resources we need without, basically being at the mercy of those who really don't have our best interests at heart.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a good thing. And as Martha Stewart would say, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. All right. Well, this was a marathon episode, but we needed it. We needed it, I think.
We had a lot of things pent up.
We did.
In us, and we had to release them.
All right. So this is the end of episode 173, Smork Show Podcast. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And we'll be back again very soon. I have nothing to say.
I think we did a lot of talking, so we don't really have to.
Oh my gosh. I feel good. I feel good that we got that out of our system.
Yep, I agree.
All right, so that's it. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again very soon from another episode of the Smork Show Podcast. Take care.